Hello and welcome to the Masterclass on Gender Budgeting for the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I am Yasmin Ratansi. I'm the Member of Parliament for Don Valley East. I was elected in 2004 to 2011 and re-elected in 2015. And as a Member of Parliament, I've held numerous executive positions. I have been the Liberal Party Whip. I have been the chair of the Government Operations Committee. I have been the chair of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women, and I'm currently the vice chair of the Standing Committee on Government Operations. I was re-elected in 2015, and I was elected as the chair of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. Now, what is my professional background and why am I an expert on this? I am a fellow of the Chartered Professional Accountants Association. I am the vice chair of the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption. I am a certified management consultant whose focus has been on gender-based analysis and good governance. I've been a member of the Internal Audit, and I have done a lot of work on gender budgeting. So what has been my experience? So I have had over a decade of experience using gender-based analysis for budgeting, for governance, and for accountability. And I have taken that experience and helped parliamentarians across the world, from Vietnam to Azerbaijan to Mali to Niger, to help them implement a gender lens when they are doing their budgeting. As well, when I was the chair of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women, I commissioned a comprehensive report on gender-based analysis and gender-responsive budgeting. So people ask, what is gender budgeting? And that was a question I received when I was at the Commonwealth Women's Parliamentarian Association, where we were discussing strategic planning and how we could make things easier for women. So gender budgeting, it's an analysis of the budget, because that budget, depending on which part of the world you are, ours is $300 billion. And we look at the budget and its impact on men and women. Most of the time that when we are doing the analysis, whether it's a tax break or a tax credit, people see that the benefit goes to a man. So how do you make it a fairer system? What gender budgeting requires is to analyze government programs and policies, analyze the whole of the government budget. So all of us go through the estimate process, through the finance process. We need to determine what strategy the government is taking and its implication on genders, be it gender responsive budget or is it a gender irresponsive budget. So the next slide that will come on is about what is gender-based analysis plus. And most of you have heard about that term. The plus says, how do you examine the effect of legislation on all genders, plus a range of intersecting identity factors, including age, ability, education, language, culture, geography, ethnicity, religion, social class, income, etc. It is a wide range of things that one must look at. So why is gender budgeting important is the next slide that we are going to put. If you look at the population of the world, 50% or more is female. And when a budget does not allocate dollars to that 50%, then we do not have a fair process. So gender-based analysis is a fairer process of allocating tax dollars. And it makes economic sense, because if 50% of the population, the additional 50%, is earning and paying taxes, it increases the revenue to the government. It also creates a more inclusive society, and it eliminates or alleviates poverty. And why do you need to alleviate poverty? Because poverty is the root cause of a lot of social issues. And therefore, gender-based analysis leads to a widespread gender equality. So what has been Canada's experience in gender equality? So in Canada, if you look at the chart that will appear, the gender gap was high by international standards. When I say international standards, I talk about the OECD standards. In 2013, Canada, Australia, USA, and UK seem to be in the ballpark of women earning 80 cents to the dollar that a man earns. Is it fair? In other parts of the world, women probably earn 10 cents to the dollar that a man earns. Is it fair? Is it equality? Is it integrating people into society? No. So the next slide then shows that the gender wage gap has narrowed since 1976, but still is significant. For example, if you look at the median income for women, it has been improving from 35,000 in 1976 to 45,000. But the median income for men is 55,000. So there is still a $10,000 gap. And we need to be more vigilant. Hence, our budgetary measures in Canada, especially budget 2016 and 17, have been very, very focused on inclusiveness and gender sensitivity. So let's look at the history of gender budgeting in Canada. As a country, we have taken the gender gap and the wage gap very seriously. For example, in 1995, the Beijing Conference, the report on gender equality was defined and outlined, and therefore the government took on the responsibility to ensure that we made some changes. For example, during the time of Prime Minister Chrétien and Martin, who were a feminist prime minister, from 1993 to 2005, they brought in tax measures. They brought in some changes. For example, tax credits for working women, tax credits for child tax care, etc. And as chair of the Committee on the Status of Women, I looked at the economic security for women, as well as commissioned a report which was called Towards Gender Responsive Budgeting. We studied the impact of tax policies on men and women. We studied the programmatic impact on men and women. So, this laid the foundation for the Status of Women Canada to help departments implement a gender lens in program development. Now, we all know that governments create a lot of programs. So if there's an infrastructure program, or there's a program for health, or there's a program for tax, or there's a program for social services, we need to look at it and find out how it impacts. So the Minister of Finance was required to look at tax measures through the gender lens. And here I'd like to give an example. We, under the Martin government, reduced the minimum tax to 15%. When the Harper government came in, it increased it to 15.5%. And these are people at the low end of the income spectrum. So we are very careful that when we do anything that changes the gender lens or gender equality, we have to be vigilant. So with the election of a new government in 2015, it was extremely gender focused. There is a gender balanced cabinet, is a feminist prime minister in Justin Trudeau. And budgets 2016 and 17 contain numerous measures for furthering gender equality. They include the Canada Child Benefit, which gives more support to families, and it alleviates 300,000 children from poverty. There is investment in early learning and childcare, investments in training skills, the urban indigenous strategy, because that's important for our indigenous population, and the right to request flexible work arrangements for federally regulated employees. And 2017 also included a gender statement, which is the first budget to ever have a gender statement. And all MPs in Parliament are asked to take a GBA, gender-based analysis course, to ensure that they are sensitive to these issues and that when they are asking questions of departments on their performance report, that they have a gender lens available. So the next slide will be talking about our international assistance policy, and we are the first country to have a feminist international assistance policy. We declared the policy in 2017. What does that do? It promotes gender equality and empowers women and girls globally. There is a budget that is allocated to international assistance, and that will be increased from 2% to 15% over 5 years. And the commitment is $650 million over 5 years, plus $150 million over 5 years to local women's organizations dedicated to promoting women's rights and furthering gender equity. Because what we had been doing, it was giving it to large organizations, and they were male-driven. So we have changed our focuses. So is gender budgeting without its challenges? No. There are lots of obstacles to gender budgeting. The first one, of course, is resistance to change, because people think, well, why are we changing tax policies? It is all okay. They do not realize that there's 50% of the population that's left out. So that becomes a fear of the unknown, and sometimes it's fear of losing power, because people think, well, why are you talking about women and gender? I, as a man, feel that I am threatened. The men do not realize that it is not, we're not taking over the sense of entitlement. What we are doing is we are ensuring that there is egalitarianism, that they should not be judged by different standards, that there should not be any barriers to economic growth, that both men and women should work together to ensure the economic health of the country. So how did we overcome some of the obstacles? Well, in my case, I had chosen champions, and these were male champions, and these were male champions who ran social ministries of human resources, of social services, and they helped us. And through them, we built capacity and understanding of what GBA entails, and we mainstreamed it, because it cannot be a woman's issue. It has to be a family issue. It's a societal issue. And we also have a status of women department and a committee that is very keen and vigilant on ensuring that GBA lens is used. And that, the last and most important thing, is that there should be leadership that takes the GBA seriously. So, how do you raise the importance of gender issues? Look at issues from the whole of family perspective, and you should present your gender issues in a factual manner, not an emotional manner, in an economic impactful manner, not a emotive manner, because it's very important to get men involved in moving the agenda forward. Men and women working together can get things moving, really. So, how do you do that? And the other thing that I found is that there's only 26% of women in federal parliaments. And there's a study done by a Finnish parliamentarian who stated that in some countries there's 0% representation of women in parliament. And I think it's important for CPA to ensure that we encourage more women to get into Parliament and enable them to remove the obstacles. Now, the next important thing is, how does one conduct gender analysis in policy development? So the first thing you have to do is identify the issue. What is the issue? Is it children who are poor? Is it women, single women with children that are poor? Once you've defined the issue, then you ask yourself, what is my anticipated outcome? And to do that, you have to gather information, you have to conduct research and consultation. And most of us know that through committee work, we bring in expertise and we ask them to provide us with information. Then you develop that information and data, analyze the options, and you make recommendations. And that's the most critical aspect, is communicate the policy and ensure that once you've communicated, you monitor and evaluate the impact of the policy. So what is the data required to conduct GBA? You need statistical data on families, such as income level, type of work the family members do, the cost of living, their demography, and the Department of Finance data, so that the committee and the department can both work together to determine what should be the minimum tax base, what type of a child tax credit should be given, what are other social safety net features that we should all have. And my advice to parliamentarians is the following. You must get more women involved in politics. You must choose a leader of your country who understands that women's issues are societal issues. You must be an advocate for 52% of the population who have little or no voice. And be firm. There are times when mansplaining, nobody knew what mansplaining was, but it is an area where men out-talk women or talk over women. So be vigilant about it and create a network of like-minded men and women who are looking to alleviate poverty and ignorance. And I thank you for listening.